So
Yeah.
I know you've supported Barlog's vision for Kratos.
Well, I loved his game.
Okay, but how do you feel about? I do think this is a softening of Kratos's character. You know, the whole fatherhood angle and just that focus on it was very, very different than what you were doing early on.
Yeah.
And I mean, just as a creator, how do you feel about where they took the character?
So people have really, I don't think misconstrued. I think I was clear, but I think people are selective on what they wanted to hear me say. Because a lot of people hit me back. It's like, you're an idiot if you don't think characters need to change and have character arcs and stuff. I'm like, I'm very well aware of that. Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't think all characters need to be adult literary fiction characters that start here and they're totally different by the end. When you're writing comic book superhero IP franchise characters like a Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Kratos, you want to have some nuance and some pathos in the character so he doesn't just look like a cardboard cutout character. But you don't want to end up with someone who's so different when you're making Game 6 that it may as well not be Kratos. Now, what Corey did for 2018, what I said was what Corey did for 2018 was so smart and brilliant because we knew this character needed a jump start. It was as much of a brilliant marketing PR move on his part as it was a writing part. I think the problem with it is that fundamentally, and you could speak to this as a I guess a fan of the games and somebody, a writer who knows the character, is that once you pulled that rabbit out of the hat, which was, hey, look, he's changed and it's in the narrative, blah, blah, blah. That works if the story's over. But then you get to Ragnarok and what you're left with, though, what you're building the next X number of years of the franchise with is a character who's fundamentally no longer that interesting. So it's not that I think the journey is not a relevant, interesting one, but I think who you're left with is not a character to build a franchise around. And I also think that Atreus is a terrible character at a visual level and a play level. I like his function as a son for Kratos. But if they can't, that guy needed to be set up by the end of Ragnarok or the middle of Ragnarok to be like, fuck, that dude is cool. I want to be that guy. Right. And Ragnarok didn't give us that. It didn't give us a Kratos that was like, this is some old boring dude who's just complaining and mopey. So that was my complaint. People, you don't understand how fiction works. Yeah, I do, bitch. I understand it so well that when I tried to write comic books, I would seek them out. I talked to Mark Waid. I talked to Kurt Busiek. These are big comic writers back in like early 2000s. The guy wrote Marvels.
So, dude, I appreciate your insight on this because I totally agree. Because it's literally about, if you were going to start from scratch, how do you make the character that is going to be the head of a franchise? Like interesting, fun to play. Don't forget the fantasy part of it. Like, oh my God, as a 13-year-old kid, I want to be
that guy.
War god, and I want to be having sex with these nymphos, to replenish my right. That's the fantasy. You think that happened to Drake because he got married and had a kid?
I think they are sniffing their own farts. I think what happened is, and all these guys out there can complain about DEI and ESG when they should be complaining about EGO. Huh? I'm a politician. Ego. Because fundamentally, doing that to Drake, to Nathan Drake, nothing's wrong. I liked it. I liked it as a story. I'm not beating up on Uncharted 4, but these games Last of Us is different. Last of Us presents from the very beginning as this is a adult piece of literature. Whether it's that quality or not is your mileage will vary, but it's clear characters are going to die, characters are going to change. This is more of a deeper tapestry of humanity, blah, blah, blah. But Uncharted is pulp. Kratos is pulp. Right? They're Indiana Jones. They're Luke Skywalker. They're Spider-Man.
It's Marvel and DC, dude.
Yeah, and when I asked
DC
the Marvel writers, I said, well, because I was trying to learn to write comics, I said, everybody always tells me that your characters need to change, but if I write Peter Parker in panel 1, page 1, and he's Peter Parker as we know him at the end of issue 500, how do I arc him by the end of 24 pages and he's no longer Peter Parker? That might be good storytelling. but that's no longer Peter Parker.
Let me predict what they told you.
Okay,
because
yeah.
it's the same thing. It's the same thing for series television. It's different than movies, dude, and different than novels. In theory, a movie and a novel is about a character arc where the whole point of the story is the character starts here and ends here, and that arc that it defines the character by something he needed, some fault he had, something missing in him, and in order to defeat whatever the plot is, he has to change within himself.
That's right.
But that's not the case with comic books for the most part, or with series television, because it's basically a machine, right? It's like if you're watching the X-Files, yes, you have an ongoing story about the cigarette smoking man and blah, 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 but nobody really gave a fuck about that. It was all about how, what was the interesting paranormal thing?
Right.
They kind of did, but they shouldn't have, because it never went anywhere and it was stupid.
I know. But I know what you're saying. But it's not like Mulder at the end. Mulder at the end of episode 2 wasn't like, I wanted to believe, now I don't. I've art.
No, dude,
it's like, he's Mulder.
No, what was annoying was Scully's character, because she would be like, I don't believe in any of this. And then she would see a fucking UFO land on top of her. And the next episode, she'd be like, I don't believe in any of this. And I'm like, dude, you just saw this. That writer didn't read that writer's script.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what they told me that I thought was very smart. They said, you're right that the audience needs a sense of
something
payoff. And
right?
But they said, do it with the plot, do it with the side characters, do it not even with like starring side characters like Mary Jane, but have a kid at the beginning that doesn't believe Spider-Man cares about kids at low income parts of the city. And by the end, he's realized, oh shit, Spidey is here for me too. He's a hero for everybody, whatever. So you're arcing, you're checking that emotional box for the audience, but you're doing it in a way that still protects the franchise. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Why is it? Don't you think, I don't really think this, but don't you think you should take a test before you can type word 1 on the goddamn internet? I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but you think I don't know about character arcs? You think that's what I was really saying? All I was saying is this character is not designed, and we'll see, this franchise is not designed to make that guy the star. Are you out of your mind? It's like, what 15-year-old, I can't wait to play this guy who looks like my granddad. Shut up. But it's the ego. It's Neil Druckmann going, and again, I don't dislike Neil. I love Last of Us Part 2. But on Uncharted, the idea that, nope, he's going to retire. And if there's ever any more Uncharted games, it won't be with him because, well, the story demanded it. Shut up. You think Sony marketing is going to be like, oh, let's make games with Cassie Drake and spend $300? Fuck you. Fuck
dude,
you.
You know what's funny? What's funny about
work that way, and he knows it.
But your point about Kratos is 100% correct, which is it's not that you think what they have that the Barlog and the writers did anything wrong. It's that you're setting up a franchise now where that Kratos, and I agree, dude, it's just not as interesting as your Kratos. Which, by the way, brings us to where we started this conversation 2 fucking hours ago, which is like, dude, it's like as the creative vision behind the original character. Don't you think you would have loved to have had some say in that choice?